Journey with Judy. Honest, open, transparent. It's hot.
There's no such thing as perfect people. There's no such thing as a perfect life. So come as you are, broken and scarred. Lift up your heart and be amazed and be changed by a perfect God.
I totally want to be amazed. I totally want to be changed. But like the song just said, we're broken, Dave. You're broken. I'm broken. We're all broken. But I saw a quote the other day that in the middle of broken, Dave, is a big okay. Do you know that? Okay. Like we are okay when we are broken. Right? I love that. Love, love, love that. Okay. Here's the thing, friends. I'm noticing more than ever mothers with their daughters. And apparently everyone is happy except us. Apparently every mother-daughter relationship is this beautiful, life-giving, everybody gets everybody, and it's just a beautiful thing. But in my house, it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't seem like that. And so I'm wondering if it's broken. But we know for sure that even though things might seem like they're broken or they're not working, it really is working because God is always at work in our life. And thank God he is, because some things never change, although they do say the third time is a charm in some instances, Dave, I guess. But I'm here to tell you not so much, because I, at this moment in time, or as of last week, I should say, I have 2 licensed drivers, okay, which means I did this permit test taking thing with a kid 2 times. And so you would think the third time would be a charm, that I would like sit comfortably on the way to the DMV. I would totally be trusting the process. And I'm here to tell you that it so did not work out that way. I was no more comfortable than I was with Carter or Chandler, that now my girl Ken, my 15-year-old daughter, 15 and a half to be exact, that's when you get a permit. She got to go and get her permit last week. And you know what? She did put it off for a month, because of the situation that she was in 90 some days ago when she was in her car accident. And so people were wondering, is she going to ever want to go get her license? Well, of course she wants to go get her license, like most 15-year-old kids. So there was all kinds of things going on, but here's the most important thing is I have zero credibility when it comes to anything about a car, about how to drive it, about where to go when you're in it, about anything relating to a car. My family just immediately dismisses me. But here's what I do know. I do know that feeling that you have, that we all have, I think, when you got to take a test. I don't care what the test is. There's something about it. And the deal is you can't stress about a test, because when it comes, it's certainly not the, okay, let me just back up a little bit here. Certainly not the driving permit test, Dave, because Kennedy made it perfectly clear you were allowed to get 10 wrong and still pass. So I think that she went into it knowing, like, all I have to get is this, and this makes it good enough. Okay? Do you share that mindset? Does that make sense to you? Okay. Okay, you don't share. I totally agree. I don't share it either. So I guess the question on the table this morning before we go to the break is 2 things. Don't stress about a test, but the reality is, how good is good enough when it comes to tests, when it comes to life, when it comes to journeying with Judy, which you are right here on Lake 96.1. We'll be back after the break. Okay, so my girl Ken took her driver's test, my 3rd kid taking the test. And let me clarify, it was just the permit. So it was just the written test. And there was something about taking her for this test. And, I always say this is always about that. Well, the reality is my anxiety or apprehension about this test really had nothing to do with what it did for Carter and Chandler. Because the situation with Kennedy was, if she didn't pass this test, it would just be one more thing that she would have to overcome. It would just be one more thing that could be judged as a setback or not good enough or cause her to say stuff like, why me? Right, Dave? Okay. Well, that was my take on it as her mom. So she made it clear that I did not have to come in with her when the reality is I did, okay? And when the woman said, I need your license and registration, Kennedy made it clear that I should not even have a license. It's really, there's a problem that she did. She goes, I don't know why my mom has this. She's really not worthy of one. But anyway. So, because I'm a really bad driver, and if I'm teaching my kids to be honest, open, and transparent. Totally. So then when it was time for Ken to sit in the little thing and take her test, she made it clear that I should leave. So I sat outside, I prayed. And here's what I prayed for. I prayed for God's will, whatever that was. If it was that Kennedy didn't pass, that there would be a reason and that I would have this really profound wisdom to share with her that would be uplifting and make how good is good enough. Just I could put that to bed for her. So she texted me and said, you can come in now. So I walked in and I kind of looked at her and I was like, so? And she was like, you can get X amount wrong. You can get 10 wrong. So I'm like, yeah. And she goes, and I didn't get that many wrong. So that was her way of saying that she actually passed it. But I cannot tell you how many she got wrong. She did tell me, and I've been sworn to secrecy, and I do respect her privacy in very few areas, as you know. So it got me thinking, like, how does a test like that really determine? Oh, first of all, what is a test? It's a procedure intended to establish the quality of performance or reliability. True that? Yes. It's also defined as a critical examination, observation, evaluation, and a trial. It's bottom line, a measurement of how good something really is. So that in and of itself is an issue, because here's the thing. If my kid can pass a test, and forget about my kid, if somebody can get their driver's permit, get behind the wheel of a car, P.S., you don't need hands-on experience to be able to get this permit. You just need to get enough right as to be determined good enough. So here's my question, Dave. The 10 things that you maybe got wrong, does that mean those things are less important than the ones you got right? Because I'm guessing everything on the DMV test is pretty important. True? Yes. Because it has to do with like signs and rights of way and like actually your knowledge about driving. Well, the other apprehension I had about Kennedy is the only time she ever drove anything was a four-wheeler, and the first time she drove it, she crashed it and flipped it. So that was a little scary to me, right? Okay, so I was thinking about tests, and this starts at kindergarten, Dave. If from kindergarten to when you're 15, you start taking this, standardized testing, right? Yep. It's a common bank of questions. Everybody gets the same question. It's all set up the same way for everybody. It's multiple choice. And at the end, it measures a group of people and their knowledge in a certain thing over a period of time. True that? Okay. Then it dawned on me that my kid recently took a boater's test, Kennedy, when she was 12. Boater's test. That's when you sit in a classroom for 3 days. Again, friends, we have no hands-on experience. You do not have to have any experience to drive a boat on Lake Geneva. That is your parents' responsibility to teach you. After you do this written test, you tell them about your now knowledge, just like your driving test. And in that case, I think you have to also score 80%, which is so you get 10 wrong. What about the 10 things you got wrong? How come you don't have to come back into the classroom and relearn those critical things that were important enough to be on the test to begin with? Dave, is this crazy to you?
It's a different perspective.
It's a totally different perspective, but somehow we're still able to determine how good is good enough. Like you have enough knowledge, so you can do that. You're going to pass or you're going to fail. Okay, then now we're moving on to like an ACT test. Okay, now this is not hands-on or based over a period of time. This type of testing, which we're taking for college acceptance and stuff, is an aptitude test. And that's telling us, like they're saying that by doing that test, you can forecast and predict your future progress and success. Okay, and they say what's good enough on that, Dave, is a 21. It's good enough. I mean, but I got to tell you, comparison is the death of contentment. I will not tell you what I got on my ACT. I will tell you I cheated off my boyfriend. And if you just get one little circle wrong, you're dead in the water. So I don't suggest cheating. But anyway. So when it comes to this, like you think you're good enough until you talk to somebody else. And all of a sudden now what was good enough for you is not good enough anymore because we know that comparison is the death of contentment. Now, I also took a little test the other day with my daughter Campbell, who PS types 59 words per minute. Is that a lot? Yes. Okay, well, I got -1. I don't know how you. Okay, because here's what happens if you type the word wrong, you lose a point. And so I was just like trying to go so fast, I cannot type, just so you know. But if there was a talking test, words per minute, Dave, hands down, baby, I would be winning 750 billion words per minute. Okay, the other thing I noticed while Googling this test and preparing for show is like what kind of test we take, a personality test. I want you to know I did start to take that. I did get a bit sidetracked in my preparations. However, I didn't finish it because I was afraid of what I might find out. So here's the deal about this whole testing thing is people generally don't like it. We have some apprehension about it because I think we are aware that it's going to determine if we're good enough. It's going to expose what it is that we don't know, whether it's important or not. That's a big thing with my kids. We take tests in school, Mom, and it's so stupid. The information we're being asked is so irrelevant and so doesn't matter. But regardless of my kids' perspective on taking a test, there will always be opportunities in our life to be tested. And a test, again, friends, just demonstrates our ability to understand material or to perform a task. It's a procedure intended to establish the quality, performance, or reliability of something. So when Jesus said, "Consider it joy, every trial that you might endure. Consider it joy because you might become perfectly complete. You will be lacking nothing." Testing refines us. And you got to be digging that, Dave. So thank you to Greg Cunis for sponsoring my show. And we'll be back after the break. You are listening to Lake 96.1.
I've been asking the question, what's it all about? This life, this place, how do I fit in? I can't find the answers in a two-faced world. Where is my example of how to love, of how to live?
So our example of how to live and how to love can always be found in Jesus. Like we're always measuring up to and measuring up for something or somebody that we are allowing to tell us and deem us good or good enough. But Jesus says, well, wait a minute. You are chosen, beloved, adopted, forgiven, and redeemed. So by virtue of me being inside of you, that makes you good enough. So we're talking about tests, a procedure intended to establish the quality or performance or reliability of something. And Jesus is saying we got to consider it joy when we undergo a trial because we're going to be made perfect. So forget about the boater's test, the driver's test, the ACT test, the typing test, and whatever other test that you have allowed to deem you good or good enough. Let's talk about the real test that we undergo every single day, that we open our eyes and do this thing called life. How about the test of our character or our faith? How about the test of our marital vows or financial responsibility? The test of our parenting, the test of our work ethic. How good, my friends, how good is good enough? Because here's the bottom line. In life, there's only two questions on the real test that will ever have value both here and for eternity. All you got to do is two. Can you imagine a test with two questions, Dave? I mean, that is like so awesome. What's even better than it is so easy to study for. We're going to talk about how you can get, why you don't have to stress for a test in just a minute. So thanks for that lead in. So if it had two questions and they were multiple choice, yes or no, I mean, Dave, come on, I could even pass that, right? So if all you got to do is two. All right, let me back up. It seems there's so much info that we don't need to know. That's what my kids say, right? So I'm saying there's only two questions we got to get right in every single area of life. Do you love him above all else? And do you love your neighbor as yourself? So if we're living this life and we're allowing people to deem us good or good enough, and we take that part of the equation and we remove it, and we answer these only two questions, that are absolutely a critical examination, an observation, and an evaluation, and a measurement of how good we're doing something. And remember, the only goal is to be Him and see Him in the Christian life. Then that would be a cause of a test to stress about, Dave, because I would have to answer no and no, which means I would not have passed. I would have been deemed not good enough, except God sees the heart. God judges us not on our successes, my friends, but always on our efforts. See, the biggest room in my house is the room for improvement. When it comes to everything, when it comes to character and faith and parenting and you name it, I'm always saying how good is good enough. And when it comes to any kind of test that we have to take in life, any kind of test, the Lord is saying don't stress about the test. See, the tests I'm going to ask you to go through, because remember, the Lord does not tempt us. The Lord tests us for further purification, refinement, and perfection. It's the same thing we do for the other tests that we prepare for in life. There's a before the test, a during the test, and after the test. So before the test, what do? The obvious thing is we prepare. The obvious thing is we plan. We look at the past and we analyze how things worked out, what we knew, what we didn't know. And then what we didn't know, we seek help from somebody. And we go to that test being armed with knowledge. We go to that test being ready, being rested, right, Dave? Isn't that what you do? What you would do in any, that's the optimum situation. Okay, so we always want to set ourselves up to succeed and not to fail, except my son Chandler for his ACT. I won't tell you what he got the first time around, but it wasn't good enough by my standards, his dad's standards, college standards, or his standards. But he mentioned after he retook it and really did so much better that he did fall asleep during it and he forgot his calculator. So probably two really good things that wouldn't go in my story today about what to do. Chandler was clearly not prepared for that test or any test. Okay, so now you got the before. What about during the test? What are you doing during the test? You're being confident. You're being confident because you got this, because He is in you, leading you, guiding you, walking above you, below you, and beside you, because you've prepared. He's prepared. You got to be careful. You got to pay attention. You got to exercise every possible solution and strategy. You got to decide what's being asked of you. And you got to stay focused. See, the during the test part is the hardest part because we allow all these other things to distract us. We allow what's happened in the past to put us in a place of being fearful or afraid or not confident and maybe even not careful but careless. When the reality is, if we act on what we remember most, and what we're remembering most is that God always comes through, then during the test, we can always be confident because we want to pay attention. We want to know every possible strategy to exercise and what's being asked of us. Because then afterwards, after the test, you can celebrate. You could say, oh my gosh, it's over. I know that my kid walked out of that test and was like, it's over. It's done. Celebrate the success. Celebrate the strengths that have been made evident because of your preparations before, because of your confidence during. And then here's the reality, is it's an opportunity to see our weaknesses. It's an opportunity to relearn the lessons that maybe we didn't learn the first time. I told Dave, I think I said that to the Lord in our opening prayers. I'm sorry I keep having to learn the lesson, but I know that something doesn't leave us until we learn to live with it. The only way out is through. Tests are different for all of us. I've been so mindful of farmers these days in the month of May. Like, I want to celebrate what farmers do who undergo the most unpredictable tests on a regular basis. See, they got to learn to endure the elements. And like they so beautifully model for us what it is to go through a drought or some heat or some hail, wind, and snow. That's right. Who would ever know that at the end of that test, like a farmer only gets 12% of every dollar spent on food. But they're the same people who any given farmer feeds 155 people out of their family-owned business. So see, in my house, I'm going through one test. Kennedy's going through a different test. Bob's going through a different test. But I'll tell you, farmers as a family, their whole family's in it. I don't know if that makes it harder or makes it easier, but it's just another way that we get to learn how to do the only two. And in 2 minutes, I'll be back after the break. You are journeying with Judy right here on Lake 96.1. Okay, so our tests are always for our benefit, and they're always so we can learn. The acronym for learning as we end today's show is leave the hardest for last. E for experience. Accept and adapt what it is that you need to know. R, respond in faith. And N, never, ever give up. So your test this week only has 2 things we got to get right in every area of life. Did you love him above all else? And did you love your neighbor as yourself? If you got that down, you got it going on, Dave. You know that? That's what I'm talking about. You have journeyed with Judy right here on Lake 96.1. And so this week, I ask you to please keep it hot, honest, open, and transparent. Peace out.